Everybody get on your interwebs and start posting about
Don't
this.
bug Luke, I guess. Leave
No,
the
yeah,
poor man alone. I would vote for Luke.
that is wild. Vote for Luke. Hey, everybody, welcome to Nerd Newz. Today, I have a guest host with me. You may recall, and I'll probably put up here in the blah blahs somewhere, that I did an episode of the game with Chuck here. We had a conversation about yes and. That was a really, really great episode too, especially for all you role players. So up here in the blah blahs, I will link it. We're going to talk about some nerd news. The very first topic, everyone, prepare yourselves. Our show boyfriend, Henry Cavill, is having a baby. I wouldn't say that's necessarily sad news. Right? Happy news. It's happy news. You know, when you have a show boyfriend like Henry Cavill, you just want him all to yourselves, but now his time will be split. Have you heard anything about this at all? About Henry Cavill having a baby?
No, no, I had not. Papa Cavill. He's got like 25 brothers and
Does he?
yeah, something like. Well, he's got like 5 brothers,
Okay.
and they're like all like military kids and stuff. So I'm sure they're stoked.
Oh my God. I can't believe I didn't know that about him. Now I kind of want to look it up and see what they look like. Do they all look like him? Do you know?
There's like 2 or 3 of them, I think, that they look exactly alike.
So basically, if I can't get Henry Cavill, there's a chance, is what you're saying, to get one of his brothers, maybe.
I think most of them are married. I think most of them are like.
Stop shattering my dreams.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. Access Hollywood actually made an accidental suggestion that his co-star Henry Golding inspired him to be a dad. Henry says, no, that's not true. It was his parents. He is having a baby with, what is she? She is television exec at Vertigo Entertainment. They've been together 3 years. They went public with it about 3 years ago, but I guess public is kind of relative because they keep everything under wraps. It's really private. I don't know about you, but I didn't even know he was with someone. And now all of a sudden I found out he's having a baby and I'm really sad, I guess. Not that I would want to have his baby. Maybe this is going down a weird route. I don't know what it is, but show boyfriend having a baby. All right. Here's the fun thing. I can't wait for us to talk about the Deadpool trailer drop in the last week. Have you seen the trailer?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
So I don't know about you, but I'm the kind of person that especially when you have a franchise like Deadpool or anything else, right? Like Harry Potter, let's say, if a trailer dropped, you're looking at the trailer to pick apart all the little things to see what's this movie going to be about? Who's the bad guy? Who are the guests that are going to be on the, in the movie that we might recognize? We are going to break down some of the stuff that we saw in the trailer. And some of this stuff I found in research I didn't know about. Like Charles Xavier, Professor X, has an evil twin sister. I didn't know that. Here's the thing. I love the movies. And I loved X-Men like way back in the day. I followed anything animated I followed, but I never read the comic books. So all that like deep dive lore, I don't know anything about. Do you read comics? Did you read the comics at all?
I do, yeah. His household's an absolute nutshell.
What?
His household, that Xavier's childhood home would be just a nightmare.
Really? Okay, so you know all about this. Okay. Emma Corrin is playing Cassandra Nova, who is Professor X's evil twin sister. Now, in the deep dive of doing this research, I found out, okay, this is canon, right? I found out Nova, you're going to have to help me pronounce this. Mumadrai? Okay.
Hmm?
So it says it's a Shi'ar word that means anti-self. I don't know what any of that means. And every living being has one of these on the astral plane. So she was the Mumadrai of Charles.
You call it like the alter ego, essentially, like the dark version of Charles.
Okay, like
the yin, yin and yang or anything like that, like an alternate version of him.
Okay. I like that you put it in that way. That makes sense to me. And then in the womb, Charles could sense she was evil and used his psychic powers to attack her in the womb.
Yeah.
Was that in a comic book? Were kids reading this? That's
I
wild.
mean, there's still like I don't remember what comic book that is from, but that's not unheard of for comic books or graphic novels or anything like that. Like it gets pretty hairy.
They get pretty dark, right? So he attacked her in the womb. This led her to being stillborn. Okay, so I guess this is now this is how she became the Mumadrai of Charles.
It's
Um,
dark.
yeah, and then her body clung to sewer walls and started building itself, like rebuilding itself, I guess, for decades, for this entire time. And she was, I'm envisioning like some slop flung against a sewer wall and just growing there for decades until and plotting revenge somehow against this sewer wall. And then once she came into power, she was like, all right, now's my time. I'm going to come out of the sewers. This was all canon. It's wild. I've never heard of any of this. But she also has like crazy powers. She has Professor X powers plus. Like
Yeah, just like a
she
little. Well, she's not holding back. I think the thing is that they're supposed to be exacts. So Charles has these powers too, but he holds back, where she doesn't
ah
have the moral
the moral
obligation to
code.
hold back. Yeah.
That makes
She,
sense. Yeah. So yes, she has the same powers. She can heal faster than a human. She has telekinesis, phase through solid matter, create mutations in people with latent mutant abilities, and then manipulate people's DNA. That's like a crazy amount of powers. I mean, you could definitely use that for evil. Okay, so
yeah.
enough about the evil. Who's the bad guy in the movie, right? So we saw Deadpool recruiting Wolverine. Okay, you've watched all the Deadpool movies, right? And all the
Yeah.
X-Men movies probably too. There's a very reminiscent scene of, I think it was Professor X and Magneto trying to recruit Wolverine in a bar, and he basically told them to like go fuck off, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Go fuck
So
yourself.
so I think they tapped into that like memorable moment. The gun, the little muzzle flash or the end of the muzzle says "Smile, wait for the flash." I'm trying to remember. I feel like I've seen that already in one of the Deadpool movies. So I don't know if that's a new thing. It seems
Definitely
familiar
like
to
a
me.
camera thing. Like it's
Yeah.
supposed like it's I think when like when we were kids, there was always that sign like right at the top
Oh,
of the guy's like thing, and it
smile.
would
The
just
camera's on you.
yeah.
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 Let's see. Oh, this is what I'm so excited for in the movie, right? I thought about this when I saw the trailer the first time when they're fighting. And I think you can see like Wolverine's claws going into Deadpool and Deadpool's like, doing something. And they both have super healing powers. So that fight could be super epic, right? They might get a little tired, but they're just gonna keep going at it. Who would win in that fight?
It drums down to it becomes incredibly tedious to kill each other.
And then they just get tired of it and they stop.
It's like this is pointless.
Yeah. I wonder if that's how it's going to go down. This is going to go nowhere. Somebody mentioned this too. Wolverine is always seen in bars. He can't really get drunk, right? Or he'd have to drink a crazy amount of alcohol to get drunk.
Yeah, he would like his body removes toxins
Mm-hmm.
from his system over and over, like toxins and damage and what have you. But he is slowed down significantly because of the claws. So maybe because the adamantium's poisoning him all the time.
Oh,
So that's slowing
oh,
down his healing factor, which maybe helps to intoxicate him.
I don't know. Was that ever mentioned in the movies or did it just like totally fly over my head? I didn't realize that
I
adamantium was
It's
poisoning.
very poisonous. It's incredibly poisonous. Yeah. So
Wow.
it's driving his toxicity levels up all the way. It's why Sabretooth generally has a better healing factor than Wolverine because Sabretooth doesn't have, a body covered in toxic metal.
Right. Right. So I wonder if that answers the question in the trailer. Did you see when Wolverine tried to like pop out his claws and they didn't go out all the way?
The whiskey clause is what he
Yeah.
calls them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, why did that happen?"
Maybe he's a little drunk. Maybe he's like he's a
That's
little
like
slow.
yeah, old man Logan, like he's really old man Logan.
I mean, we
um
see that in that one, don't we? We see that when he's old man Logan. In the movie Logan, he's old man Logan.
right, right.
So and he has to pull his claws out like they're like arthritic, like
Oh my God, I'm gonna have to rewatch that movie. I don't remember that. That's a great detail though. That is, what about his suit, right? I was a little bit, I've been hesitant about the yellow and blue suit because that's what I remember like from the X-Men cartoons was always the yellow and blue suit. And they haven't used it up until now. I think. So when they showed Wolverine with the yellow and blue suit, I was like, oh, nostalgia. Oh man, it's still really colorful and kind of looks a little cheesy. I don't know. I'm sure they're gonna poke fun at the cheesiness of it. If they're gonna put Wolverine in a yellow and blue suit, a Deadpool movie is where you do it.
Yeah. Where you
Right?
can poke fun at it. He's gonna have that helmet on too, right? Like at some point in the movie, there's no way they're not gonna have that helmet on him.
I didn't even think about that. Oh man,
'Cause
yes.
the only reason Wolverine's hair is like that is because it's stuffed in that helmet.
Is it? I thought
Yeah.
he
So
just
like he takes it off and it just sits there like that because it's been in there for 12 hours or something.
that's pretty awesome. I just always thought it was a personal choice, but that would be awesome. That would be great. Yes. I hope that they do that with the helmet. The other thing that they talk about in the trailer is this Wolverine let down his entire world. I kind of recall from the last X-Men movie that they were starting to tap into, like, I don't remember if Cable was in Deadpool, but they did the whole X-Men, like the future past shit. I don't remember the name of the movie. They were trying to avoid this horrible future. I guess they've already tapped into X-Men, like with futures and possible like multiverses, and I know now we're kind of maybe crossing over with like Marvel. So, and Marvel's already established a multiverse, so I'm curious if this is a multiverse thing or a future thing. What do you
Well,
think?
like the movie theme, you mean?
Yeah, like
Definitely multiverse.
If Wolverine let down his entire world, is that like from a separate multiverse or from the future of this world?
There's a lot of things that we see inside that trailer that I would say there's no way it's not a multiverse, not a
Right.
TVA based problem. That Alioth will be there. I can almost guarantee you they'll use Alioth again.
Oh wait, remind me, who's Elias?
Goliath is that big spectral cloud bear in the Loki series.
Okay.
Goliath is this entity that He Who Remains was able to capture or like put on a leash on
Oh, the thing that was
somehow.
eating like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. I remember that.
Like
Yes.
stuff. It's just able to like disassemble matter. I think he's essentially like a black hole.
And you know, the other thing that is reminiscent of, you know, not only the TVA and the Marvel multiverse is the little portal that opens up. The first thing I thought of was Doctor Strange. I'm like, okay, Doctor Strange can do that. I forget the other guy's name, and I had it in my notes here.
Wong?
Yes, Wong can do it. And then also Spider-Man's friend, he could do it because he had the sling ring and he did it in No Way Home. Definitely, I think there's going to be some tie in there. I'm super excited about this. The
There's
sling
actually
ring.
rumors. I don't know if you've heard the rumors about like how multiverse this is that we're going to see more than one Wolverine.
Really?
Yeah,
No,
that's
I
what I've
hadn't
heard
heard
at
that.
least.
I
And I
hadn't heard
and I don't know if it's like something that I don't know if it's official or anything like that. There's not like my from what I understand, Henry Cavill might be one of them.
that. Really?
Yeah, I don't know which one he's going to
Hey,
be.
my show boyfriend. All right. So we'll
That's what
just
I
see.
heard at least. I don't know if it's true.
Because I love the new iteration of the Spawn, not Spawn. No, it is Spawn. Wait, who am I thinking of? Who's the guy, the actor? Shoot. Hold on. I'm gonna look this up right now. It's not Spawn.
No, because we haven't had a Spawn movie since Michael Jai White Spawn.
Who am I thinking of? Oh my god, what are the movies? I can't even think of the actor's name. Um uh
Don't you hate that?
yes. Venom is who I'm thinking
Venom.
of. That I had to close
Okay.
my eyes for a second. Okay. So, yeah, I think even at the end of Venom there was like a little multiverse thing too. And I would love to see like Venom and Deadpool. Like I doubt that's going to happen in this movie. I'm just saying in the future, and I'm going to put it in the
Venom Pool?
universe. Venom Pool.
Oh God, that'd be awful.
The other thing that was really cool in the trailer was that we see there's what looks like Ant-Man's helmet in giant form. Like I didn't even catch it the first time I saw the trailer. I had to rewatch it like 2 or 3 times to really pick it up. But it's his huge Ant-Man. Sorry, my brain
Skeleton.
just
It's just
stroked
a
out.
skeleton. It's like
Yes,
a
in
yeah.
giant form. So obviously he's dead.
Yeah.
And his suit is just being used as some
Now
base.
I wonder if it's gonna be him, if like are the Ant-Man that we know,
Oh.
or if it's gonna be an alternate universe. Because there's a thing like that in the comic books called Fallen Pym, I think it's what
Oh,
it's called.
really?
The Fallen Pym.
Yeah.
And it's just his body that's like they killed him at some point and he just lied there and they just never moved him.
I love that you know that though. I like Ant-Man, so he can't just be dead. He can't be dead.
I mean, there's multiverse. You can kill them as many
This
times as
is
you want
true.
now.
So We also have some possible returning characters. It's really hard to see some of them, but there's Azazel from X-Men's First Class. I don't really know him very well, but Lady Deathstrike is very big in Wolverine's past. And then I guess there's Dogpool. I didn't
Cool.
know
Yeah.
about Dogpool. If you don't know who Dogpool is, folks, I didn't know. Dogpool is actually a real character in the comics. It's another version of Wade Wilson, I guess, from Earth something blah blah 103173. And he was created in 2010 and has the same powers as Deadpool. So imagine having a Dogpool that can like regrow limbs, super healing factor.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
You know, Zazel is Nightcrawler's dad.
I was trying to remember because Nightcrawler was one of my like favorite characters from the X-Men cartoons. Yeah, it just sounded really familiar. So maybe Nightcrawler might be coming too. I don't know.
I mean, like they gotta start like putting stuff together so they can do like a X-Men versus the Avengers, or like they can do those types of things, or to start getting the mutants
Yeah.
like back into the main MCU. So there's gonna be lots of crossovers like that in the next little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's going to be really cool. And then you brought up the TVA. This is what I saw in the research. The theory is the plot for this movie is that Deadpool is working for the TVA and the multiverse needs to enlist the help of him and like Wolverine because Wolverine's world is possibly under control by this Cassandra Nova. So it's like a Wolverine Deadpool team up with the TVA. I'm a little confused how the TVA is involved. Is it
So
just because
I
of the
would
portal?
say no. So I'd say it's the opposite. So
Okay.
we heard through the trailer is that this Wolverine disappointed his entire world. That means that whoever's speaking, it might be Cassandra, but it could be a TVA agent saying
Oh.
this Wolverine here, he failed his whole planet. Like it's hardly somebody to trust, something
Mm-hmm.
like that, right?
Yeah.
I think they're probably going to be the overarching like theme villain of the movie is the TVA as a whole.
Okay.
And they'll be fighting the TVA pretty much consistently
Oh.
throughout the movie. That's my
Okay.
guess at least.
Interesting.
But it could be
Interesting.
Cassandra because it is a woman's voice, I think, saying that. And Cassandra would be manipulative and trying to turn Deadpool, but Deadpool's famously irritating and stubborn, so he's not going to do anything other than what he wants to do.
Right, right. I feel like now I'm going to have to rewatch it again now that you and I have talked and see if I can pick apart anything else. I'm going to butcher this name. I always do. Sorry, folks. Rob Liefeld. He's one of the creators of Deadpool. He's known for his artistic style, which apparently he took a lot of criticism back in the day for not drawing characters' feet. I guess it was difficult. He would kind of try to hide the feet in like fog or rubble or something like that. There is a shot in the trailer, and it's I guess people are wondering if this is them poking fun and they're specifically showing feet in the trailer just in case. So I thought that was a fun little nod.
He hates drawing feet is the problem, and they always come out weird. Like come out like sometimes they come out looking like tree trunks, like general shape foot.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Just like
that's
an
why
oval.
he always hides them. Yeah, it's like kind of a foot.
So I think that breaks down everything that we saw in the trailer. Did you see anything that I didn't capture in the notes or anything?
I'll have to take another look at it because I'm gonna be looking
Okay.
and very, 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 very intently looking for any sign of Doctor Doom because I have a feeling Doctor Doom is coming around the bend.
Oh, really? What gives you that feeling?
I've seen a couple things over like the past few movies or whatever that suggests that they're moving towards Victor Von Doom as a main overarching villain.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look out for that too. Now that I'm gonna look into that. All right, so enough with the Deadpool trailer. For those of you who you may have seen this, it was barely caught, and the only reason I caught it was because I happened to be on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. It sounds so weird. If you just call it X, it feels like it's an incomplete sentence. Like people don't know what you're talking about when you say X. But anyway, on Twitter, I had found that the BBC was trying to interview Matt Mercer. This was a long distance interview. This was not an in-person interview. And just as they introduced Matt and he was just starting to talk, the interview crashed because the BBC used Zoom and didn't have a paid account. So it was kind of a little embarrassing that they started this interview and he just started talking and then all of a sudden he got cut off. And somebody, some fan, I guess, happened to catch it and share it on Twitter, like, whoops, haha, BBC, maybe you might want to pay for your Zoom account. It was just a
Keeping the
little,
lights on.
yeah, it was a little embarrassing, but I just thought it was a funny haha. So I
Yeah.
if the link is still active, I'll include the link in the things for you guys to just, it's just a funny little thing to watch. The bigger news for Critical Role, let me ask you a question. Do you drink whiskey? Do you like whiskey?
I do not
You do
drink.
not.
But if I was to have it, whiskey or bourbon is my deal. So
Oh,
that's
really?
on there.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So I am a very big, I don't want to say a whiskey snob, but I like whiskey a lot. And I know things. I know some things. So I found out that Critical Role is collaborating with Quests and Whiskey, which for those of us in this nerdy community, you might know that Quests End is Matthew Lillard's whiskey company. They have a few, I think they have like a rogue whiskey. There's a couple of them. I don't recall the names off the top of my head. They've become pretty big. And so they've collaborated with Critical Role and they are creating Sandkeg's Hide whiskey. If you did you watch Critical Role at all?
I kind of stopped watching
Yeah.
at
The
sees like
third campaign.
early campaign 3, and I always
Yeah.
like to go back to campaign 2, but yeah.
What about campaign 1?
Campaign 1 is great if you can get past the first 20 episodes when they had
Right.
really bad audio. And then after
Yes.
that, it was fantastic.
Right. Okay. So you recall the origination of Sandkeg's Hide in their campaign 1. I'm hoping. So
Oh, I don't remember details.
okay. So they were in, I believe it was Marquette. They and Grog was interested in kind of like the local drink. And the local drink was Sandkeg's Hide, which when they drank it, it would I can't remember the exact description, but I envisioned it as like being kind of in a very like natural hide kind of circular bottle, like made of natural hide. And it had some kind of a worm in it, like a sand keg,
Yeah.
in the alcohol. And if you drank it, you had to make a constitution save, and it really fucked you up. And so I love that they're tapping into the lore of Critical Role and they are creating this whiskey. I'm hoping it tastes a lot smoother than Sandkeg's Hide sounds.
I mean, they've got at least a couple Texans on that in that group, don't they? Like they
Yeah, that's true. You're right. I mean, they should know a little bit about their whiskey. I trust Critical Role. They do really well putting out like products that are good quality products. I've bought some of their merchandise. So I have good high hopes that this will be a very good whiskey. It is currently, for those of you interested, if you go to the website, obviously the links will be in our things. I mean, I'm telling you guys, I'm probably ruining it for myself because I put my name in and I'm going to get one of those whiskey bottles. And they only made so many. That's the other thing. It's very interesting, very excited. The other thing that's cool is anybody who pre-registers, you get entered for a chance to win an exclusive virtual tasting with Matthew Lillard. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, he's also on Purple Worm Kill or whatever. I haven't seen that yet, but I mean, just to meet him or have a virtual tasting with him, why not? And then you also get Master Blender Ale Okowa. I'm so horrible with names. I'm sorry. And the whole Sandkegs Hide team. So you get your own personal tasting with the team, which is pretty cool. And sorry, one more thing. For those of you who are interested in the descriptors, the notes, the tasting notes, if you will, it says it's a blend of straight bourbon finished in sherry and vermouth barrels. Now we're moving on to some bigger news. All right. There was a recent interview with Chris Cox, which those of you might remember, Chris Cox was the CEO or the president, I can't remember, of Wizards of the Coast. And he got bumped up and now he's the CEO of Hasbro. So there's still a little bit of connection there. He still has some maybe overseeing nature over Wizards of the Coast. But there was a recent interview and he did a lot of discussing about Hasbro's plans with AI. And AI is something we do a lot of talking about. It's kind of, you can't really avoid it nowadays, right? AI is pretty much it's becoming very quickly a part of everything that everyone's doing, whether you like it or not. And Wizards of the Coast has made a lot of errors in judgment when it comes to AI in the last year, AI art and things like that. So I kind of wanted to break down a little bit of the things that he said in this interview and discuss what the future of Hasbro and or Wizards of the Coast might look like with based off of his comments, right? They talked a lot about this large language model, LLM, artificial intelligence, and that it's pretty much on everyone's business plans. Hasbro's no different. So the question is like how's everybody going to use this ethically moving forward, especially Wizards of the Coast, who has been yelled at, their hand slapped for doing some things with AI art and not disclosing it. There's still controversies there. Just the last episode we talked about the art that was blatantly stolen for a Magic the Gathering card, right? And that's not even AI. So there's some questionable judgment here. One of the things Chris Cox said, and I'm just going to read the first quote, we can break it down, right? He said, "We're trying to do a new AI product experiment once every 2 or 3 months. That's tending to be more game focused for us, a little more gamified. We're trying to keep it toward older audiences to make sure all the content is appropriate. You'll see more of how we're thinking about how we can integrate AI, how we can integrate digital with physical gaming over time. I think most major entertainment and IP holders are at least thinking about it." What are you thinking? Do you think that most other companies are also trying to integrate AI?
I mean, I would assume so. Like you said, it's kind of an unavoidable thing in our world right now, as everything's going towards that range anyways. So people are going to be doing AI. It's going to be a specific or you're going to have specific base models around it. And if there's anything good to teach AI, it's creation and creativity and all that sort of good things that you could
Yeah.
teach something rather than other
Okay.
things.
I like this. So it's kind of like you're going to try to harness the power for good instead of for evil, right?
But at the same time, like I know like a lot of people don't like AI and don't like the idea of it because it can write a book in like 25 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it can make movies. It can pretty much do whatever it is that we can systematically make it do, and then at
Mm,
some point it can make itself do. So it's a matter of, I guess, it's a matter of how does it displace humans reactions to these things, like real artists, people that spend 5 days in a cold sweat
yeah.
painting a picture with no food and manically doing things for days on end, and then suddenly
AI
they can
can
sell
just
their,
soup. Yeah.
yeah, they just do it.
Yeah. I mean, it is such a pickle when we talk about AI on this show because it in our space of, tabletop gaming, yeah, oh man, and artists and game masters, it's kind of hard to deny that it can be very, very helpful. It can also probably put a lot of people out of jobs, or it'll do the things that you're paying someone to do. I don't know, man.
it's
So
just it's just like all AI, right? Like it can mimic the things that we do, but there is intrinsic natural value in when people do something for people,
right, right.
you know?
So yeah, I think what Chris Cox, as we move through this interview and his quotes, what I think he's trying to get at this point is he's saying, yeah, we're doing AI. We're going to do it because everybody's doing it. Everybody's thinking about it. And if they're not thinking about it, they should be, or we're thinking about it because we know, like, we want to get ahead of the game. The question is, like, how to do it ethically, which I guess I appreciate that he's thinking about that now.
I mean, yeah, better late than never. But
Right? The next set of quotes, right? He expresses how he's keenly aware of AI's controversies and how it relates to the open gaming license. He says, "We certainly weren't at our best during some points on the OGL, some points, but I think we learned pretty fast. We got back to first principles pretty quickly. The key there is the responsible use of it. We have an even higher bar we need to hit because we serve audiences of all ages. That's another thing to consider, right? Like it's a family oriented game in a sense. I guess I mean it can be a family game.
absolutely.
We go from preschoolers on up to adulthood." Oh, you know what? He's talking about Hasbro as well, now that I think
As
about it.
general, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I don't think we can be very cavalier in how we think about AI. That said, it's exciting. There's a lot of potential for delighting audiences. We need to make sure that we do it in a way that respects the creators we work with, respects their works of art, respects their ownership of those works, and also creates a fun and safe environment for kids who might use it. Yeah. So, trying to break this down. I love that he's saying he wants to respect all the people that are, putting in their time for art and things, and probably all the art that AI is going to learn from, all the writing that AI is going to learn from, and then they're just going to use AI. How do you use that and respect the sources, the original sources?
Oh man, it's
I, I don't
that's a
know.
lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot to go with. I'm sure happy it's not my problem.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So the big question, how would Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro use AI that respects creators, their work, ownership, and is fun to use? So here's what Cox said. He said the 20 plus years that the open game license has been in existence for something like D&D, I think that gives us a lot of experience to navigate what will emerge with AI and just generally the development of user-based content platforms, whether it's Roblox or Minecraft or what Epic has up their sleeves. Okay. So the OG, I might be jumping ahead. I'm trying to think. So the 20 plus years that the OGL has been in existence, I can speak English. He's saying that gives them a lot of experience to navigate. The OGL is meant to be used much the same way that the LLMs try to use the entirety of the internet. So going back to what LLM was, that was, what did they call it? The large language model. Okay, LLM.
Yeah, their AI model or whatever.
I think that's their AI model, right? The way that I understood this, I want to jump ahead just a little bit here, is that he talks about the 20 plus years of the open game license. And D&D has even more history than that, right? I think this year is D&D's 50th
Yeah.
anniversary. As we kind of start going through some of these quotes, my understanding is that he's going to use, the plan is that they are going to use this LLM to go through all of D&D's history, all the art that they've had, maybe not even just D&D. Let's talk about Hasbro in general, right? There's like hundreds of years of stuff, artwork, writing, game design that they can pilfer, that is their own stuff that they can pour into this LLM. Just like, for anybody who watches the show, you've heard Russell talk about how he uses his chat GPT to basically store all the lore for his world, and then he uses it as an assistant because it has all of that data already in it. So the way that I'm understanding Chris Cox when he talks about this is that they're going to use LLM and dump all of their own proprietary stuff into it because they own it already, right? And
Yeah.
now, if that's the case, do you feel that is respecting the artists, respecting the writers? Do you feel that is a better way to handle this?
So you stuff it all in there, okay,
Uh-huh.
and that sounds like good. Maybe it's a good storage unit or whatever, or you get to put everything together and then get AI to, collaborate with itself essentially and make your next generation of art or whatever it is they're going to use this for. But I wonder when you stick all that in there and you give it to something that is going to, like what at what point does it become not theirs anymore? And then they kind
Right.
of screw themselves over again. Like
I hadn't even thought about that. It's like the Terminator 2 or Terminator movies, but like instead it's gonna create its own master game that they have
yeah.
no control over.
Just turns the lights off on him or something. I don't know. But I know like we've got to be a little further away from Hasbro becoming Skynet just yet, but
Yeah.
maybe sometime soon.
Oh my God, that is
But
so
maybe
funny.
they could make some really cool artwork that was, inspired by these things, like make sure that when they're doing their, when you normally put in the front of a book or whatever your acknowledgments of the artist or the writers or whatever, because all this is going to go into LLM, maybe they do this as like this was inspired by this second edition book, this
Right.
artist from that point of time. Like we're still referencing those artists, and that way they're not trying to rip them off and then say, oh, it's 33% different. It's not copyright.
That would be a very good way for them to handle that. I like, because you're right. I'm
Be
trying to think.
classy, a little
Like
class, have a little class.
for example, people have probably written stories that are inspired by Lord of the Rings, and so their story is 20% Lord of the Rings, but the names and places have all been changed for something, to protect the innocent, that kind of thing. And it's no longer Lord of the Rings because it's mostly something else with a little bit of Lord of the Rings in there. So that is an acceptable way of looking at a piece of art and saying, this is mine. It's inspired by, but this is mine. Now take that and kind of put it over what you just said, which is they're going to take the art from, let's say, some module that was like, back in the 80s or whatever. It was great art. And then they dump it into their LLM. It spits out something reminiscent of, like you said, it's going to be 20%, 30% of that, but something else. Is it a new thing? Or is it no longer? Yeah, I
The
don't know.
Archimedes problem, right? If you take their ship and you replace every board on it,
Yeah,
is it the same ship?
yeah.
Or is it a new ship? It's a new ship.
Wow. Wow.
It's
Blowing my mind right
philosophy.
now. Oh man. I do like if they were to at least acknowledge and say, hey, this LLM generated artwork for this module was inspired by, at least,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, what would be the harm in that? I don't know.
I think at least they would look like they weren't trying to just rip things off. So some of my beef about how they've done things in the past is that they rehash a lot of things and
Yeah.
pretend like they've written something new. When they didn't write anything new, they just took it from a previous edition that they didn't at the time have anything to do with. They're just like saying, "We made this."
Yeah, I really think they have a lot of work to earn people's trust back, and I think that means that they're going to have to be even more transparent than any other company would be forced to be. They have to be even more so to kind of earn some of that trust back. So that's why I'm saying, like, they wouldn't have to say this is inspired by, but boy would it be nice if they did.
And this like whole D&D in itself is a trust fall, you know? Like
Yeah.
we're all like we can sit down at the table, we play some games, we roll some dice, we see the chance, the probability on the table, and we let somebody in front of us dictate how we're going to do things. And then
Yeah.
hopefully we pass the ball back and forth. So there's a lot of trust. So there's this has always been about good communication. So I think that's why they get hit so hard, harder than like other companies would, because
Yeah.
they're championing a thing that is a game about morals and telling the truth and like kind of gets,
I feel like that is I want to make sure I'm not losing any details, but that is a great segue to the next major news piece, talking about trust falls, talking about a company that creates a game for us to use, all about teamwork and communication and morals. Cynthia Williams, who is president of Wizards of the Coast, she's resigning after 2 years. This was announced last week, or well, by the time this goes out, it will have been like 2 weeks ago. And I believe her last day is coming up very soon, April 26th. So at the time of this recording, that's 2 days from now. So this announcement was pretty shocking. I don't know if you saw this. Did you see this announcement before
no,
today?
I didn't. No.
Okay, this is where my nerdiness comes in, but I love to follow all the news that is related to Wizards of the Coast. I'm like avidly like, oh my gosh, it's dramatic. Yeah, as I'm holding my phone because anyway, the only reason that this is so shocking is because it feels like it's coming out of left field. There was no reason for anyone to believe that she would be leaving, and then there's no reason given. And then when someone who is the president of a company, someone very high up in the chain, they don't usually peace out after 2 weeks because there's no plan for succession. Who's going to follow and become the next president of Wizards of the Coast? They don't even have that planned out yet. So without that plan, they're going to be rudderless trying to figure out where to take this company, and they don't even have a leader yet, or they're going to have to pick one really quick. That makes me feel great. Well, we got to fill this seat, so you'll do. That's
I mean, sometimes that's how it happens, right? You just put the next person in there that's willing to go in there, and sometimes they're not like the right person to put in there.
right. That's what I'm worried about. You should take the time to find the right person, especially considering all the things that, okay, let's talk about this. Let's dig into this. Cynthia Williams. So she's been with them for 2 years. Let's talk about all the things that have happened to Wizards of the Coast in the last 2 years. Because obviously this hasn't gone well, and you could explain away that some of it was like from the old regime, and she had to deal with the fallout, but you could also say the same thing about any good things that happened, right? Like it wasn't because of her, it was because of the old regime. So if that's the tact that they want to take, let's dig into this, all the things that have happened in the last 2 years. I mean, obviously the OGL scandal, right? A lot of AI art faux pas.
Their CEO left, right?
Yep, Chris Cox got promoted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then she's the one who took his place. Oh, there was the layoffs There was the massive amount of layoffs at the end of last
Right.
year. And I think that continued on into this year, actually. There was, I think they released a few things with dates or things that they weren't supposed to include, and then they had to pull it out and go whoopsie, and then like put it back up without those details. I remember that. There's just a lot of things that they're doing. It feels like everything's an afterthought. They're just kind of like put things out. Whoops. Oh, let's pull this back. So I think those are probably the majority of the bad things that happened over the last couple years. I would say the main good thing was Baldur's Gate, but again, that was already being made before she
Yeah, that's
even
been
joined. Yeah.
yeah.
So she can't take credit for that.
I mean, maybe she just wasn't the right person for the job, you know? Like maybe it was just different. I don't know. I don't know what she was doing before, but like maybe it just didn't work out. And yeah, for
Right.
the 2 years that she was there was some interesting events that transpired.
I do feel like some of this stuff was probably passed down from the prior regime. Some of this stuff, though, I don't know. Like the artwork, you could easily have implemented something in place to like just have a better quality control, right?
Yeah.
Before things go out. You mentioned what was she doing before this, or like what her expertise is. I did find that she's never played D&D. She doesn't know anything about D&D. She worked for Microsoft. Now she was in the gaming ecosystem commercial team and like Microsoft's Xbox team. So again, this I feel like this harkens back to like when 4.0 came out, when D&D like 4th edition came out.
What?
That what?
I was like, what? I don't remember this fourth edition. I stricken it from memory.
Ooh, 4th edition was it just felt like it was someone trying to make D&D into a video game. And so
A card game. It was like it was such a card game.
yeah, again, we have someone who maybe has expertise with gaming, that kind of way. We can see some of the things kind of coming down the pipes that, they're kind of monetizing D&D a little bit more. They're trying to like do microtransactions. Now you can buy little things on D&D Beyond, to enhance your experience. And I don't know if that's all Cynthia Williams or not, but it feels like those are all kind of coming about maybe from her expertise. Yeah.
Well, she was
And
probably likely hired for that purpose, right? Like
right.
somebody looked at what she was doing and was like, okay, she's able to get people to buy weird things that aren't real. Maybe we can do the same thing in
Yeah.
D&D. And she was probably hired under the pretenses that maybe she can pull money from blood from the stone. And
Right. And unfortunately, I think I mean, me and Russell talked about this in past shows, but I mean, it's a good business model. Obviously it works. People do that. They do the microtransactions. I don't know how many people I know have spent money on like Candy Crush just to get to further levels, right? So microtransactions are a thing. And if you're a business, I understand how it's a good business model. But I do hope that they get someone in this position that has a little bit more of an understanding of our community and what
yeah.
what we as users would want from tabletop, from D&D, from D&D Beyond, from Wizards of the Coast. The other
Yeah, this
thing,
isn't Candy Crush, like this.
yeah, it's
I feel like
way
you'd
more.
be you,
But
mind you, dice, like we're dice goblins, right? Like for the most part, the general community is like if you get a bigger, larger dice collection, you're doing a good thing. Like this is something that we love. I don't know if that translates to like intangible things
yeah,
for this community, like if I
do you use D&D Beyond? No. Okay.
sometimes when I have to.
You know what? You bring up a good point because I am a horrible, horrible dice goblin. I have way too many dice, way too many dice. In the beginning, when D&D Beyond was rolling out, like you could get different dice sets, digital dice sets, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. But yeah, I don't have them in my hand. It just felt a little weird. I don't want to collect digital dice sets. I,
I want to
you
collect
know,
dice.
I would love to actually talk to someone who is like, yeah, I got to have them all. They're digital. I'm curious. if there's anybody out there.
There's got to
If
be some
that's
people like that.
if that's you, comment on the video. I might interview you because I want to know what it's all about. Is it cool to collect digital dice that you don't have in your hand? Is that your bag? You like that? Anyway, the other thing we've talked a lot about on Nerd News is that there's this relationship with Baldur's Gate, Larian Studios, and Wizards of the Coast. And right now, Sven, who I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly, has made lots of quotes and comments lately about pulling away from Baldur's Gate. And finally, I see this in this recent interview. I found a quote. Wizards of the Coast has seen massive layoffs. There's no one left from the original meeting with them. You share so much knowledge about D&D. It's sad, and I'm not judging anyone, but they're gone. Their knowledge is now out there somewhere. So imagine being Larian Studios coming into the Wizards of the Coast and like, yeah, we're developing this game and it's awesome. And, they're trading all these ideas. And now everyone that you worked with is gone. Like, how are you supposed to have faith in that company to like keep producing this amazing idea product that you worked on with them? There's
They
just
moved on, didn't they? They're done.
they're done. They've
Yeah.
he's moved on. He's
I mean,
not
that's
gonna.
probably why,
Yeah, yeah. I guess all this to say, I can't wait until they announce who's going to take her position. I hope that they put more thought into it because I don't know. I feel like they're going to lose their. We've talked about this as well, me and Russell too. But like, I feel like this fan base of D&D is going to go. We're going to split. We're going to divide into the people who love the way D&D was and the people who love where D&D is going now, which is going to be all VTT microtransactions on D&D Beyond. I think there's a total audience for that. I'm sure there is. But I feel like there are a lot of people that are kind of just standing here waiting. They want their D&D. And I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen anymore.
And I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that make great TTRPG games and fairly similar to D&D.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're the only guys in it. They're just the biggest ones.
That's
And they're also the ones that tend to like, we don't talk a lot about like the good stuff that is happening because it's always bigger and more interesting when somebody's like, trying to steal the OGL from people.
You bring up a good point. I mean, I think if you're not getting what you want out of D&D because you are hearkening back to the days of this and you're not moving on with like VTTs and microtransactions, there are so many other companies out there who are still doing
Good old-fashioned tabletop.
Good old-fashioned tabletop, and we got to check them out.
There's huge interest for Vampire the Masquerade is like one of the another huge tabletop, and it's very different from D&D.
Yeah.
And then there's Pathfinder. Pathfinder's out there.
Yeah.
Pathfinder's great.
You've played Vampire, right?
I played once upon a time. It was a D6 system. I think I was a little young for it at the time. I was like 14 or something. It was the years and years and years ago, but
I was just curious. I mean, I can see that, like, let's take Pathfinder, for instance, because that's probably the next biggest one. That if D&D is going this way with VTTs and all the other bells and whistles, it's safe to say that some of the other tabletop gaming industry game designers will also go that way because that's what people want and they want to get that market share, if you will. I wonder, like, Vampire the Masquerade, though, I hear is very role play heavy, less mechanics heavy. I guess I'm just curious who is going to go the way of VTT and who's going to like stick their feet in the ground and say no VTT. And is that a smart decision or not?
I think everybody's got their angle, right? The people that want to sit down and play a game and are tactical minded, they want to physically be able to see a map and count the squares and know the footage and everything like that. Those are very specific type of people that like doing that sort of tactical gameplay. There's other people that I get at the table as well that they couldn't give two craps about. They might not even roll a set of dice once throughout the entire session or maybe multiple sessions. And all they just do is they talk as their characters and they're happy to role play. So I think with role play heavy stuff, you just need less things, but you also get less things from it. It's a lot more of what you make of it.
I guess we'll see, folks, where this goes, but we'll definitely report when the new head of D&D, head of Wizards of the Coast, arrives on the scene. I would love to find out what that person's history is going to be like and who they choose, I can speak English, folks. I really can. Who they choose to run the show from now on.
Should it be like a really good business decision to like turn the tide for them, a shot in the dark? But if they could talk Luke Gygax into taking over D&D, the tide would turn. They would have people like dumbing
Yes.
out of their pockets, man. They would love it.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Luke, we're going to reach out to you, friend of the show, and maybe you can work with them and turn this ship around. That is a fantastic idea. We're just going to camp it. Everybody get on your interwebs and start posting about this.
Don't bug Luke Gygax. Leave
No,
the
yeah.
poor man alone.
But bug Wizards of the Coast. Tell them to bug him.
Yes.
Hop on your interwebs now and do it. Oh my gosh, that is a good point. How great would that be? Everybody, that would be a great campaign for Wizards of the Coast to just win back everybody's love, just like you said. Oh man,
I would vote for Luke.
that is wild. Vote for Luke.
Vote for Luke.
Oh my God. All right, folks. I think we're going to wrap it up here. It's going to be good night from me. It's good night from Chuck. And we'll see you all later.